Music and skate videos can completely make or break some videos. Now, sure, you can, do your raw runs, or, you can just make a skate edit that doesn't have any music in it, and sure, it's got its place, it's cool and all, but a lot of edits do use music. Now, a lot of times when a song doesn't really work well for a skate edit, outside of just the, I'm biased against this genre, I don't like this genre, aside from that, it's usually because the tone of the video doesn't actually match the tone in the music. So what is tone setting? Tone setting is when you give an emotion through the music. You give a tone, you give a vibe, whatever you want to call it. It presents itself in a certain way to make you feel a certain way. Now, when the tone of the music matches the skating itself, this can work super well. So you can match the tone to the actual skating, you can match the tone to the environment that the skating is happening in, and you can also match the tone of the music with a theme that might be going on in the video, especially if it's like a longer edit. It's worth noting that any genre of music can have basically any tone because there's enough variables within every genre of music to present lots of different senses of tone. When picking music out, there's not too many rules that you want to live by, but one of them is not to pick music that's knowingly been used, especially if it's like a part of like a, well-known historical skate video. Don't use the same song in there. It's just comes across as a little bit lazy in doing your homework. You also have to be careful when it comes to picking music that is popular and extremely well known. It's not because the music is bad because it's popular. No. It's because if the song is popular, most of the viewers already actually have a tone in mind when it comes to a piece of music. So it's better when the music is fresh to the listener, that they are just kind of learning about the piece of music as they are watching the video. So let's break down the pros and cons of some different genres of music. I'm only going to be discussing genres of music that are really commonly used within skate videos, so don't give me your super, super deep cut sub-genre, what about this? Because this would go on forever. There's so many sub-genres. I'm not going to do that. So let's go with probably the most common one, indie rock. Indie rock is probably the most common genre of music used within the skating realm, but it is for pretty good reason. There's an aura of imperfection in indie rock, and it matches really well with skateboarding. The vocals are going to be really harsh and untrained. Guitars and bass are oftentimes going to be pretty distorted, and drums can be very violent and unrestrained. This type of music is rarely taught in a super formal, lesson-based way, which, it's kind of similar to skating in that way. And rock music has just a overall very rebellious history in the history of music, kind of also like skating. It's not really a big surprise that indie rock is used so much with so many literal connections with skating, and also it's just a pretty widely enjoyed genre of music. Indie rock thrives in honestly too many scenarios to mention. Next up, we have metal music. Now, metal does have a lot of similarities to the previous genre. It's still very harsh, it's still very violent, it's still very untrained sounding, and just kind of more in every category. The big problem with metal music in skating is that, to be honest, most filmed downhill skateboarding doesn't really live up to the hype that metal provides. The skater has to be really putting themselves honestly in harm's way in order for the tone of the metal to match the tone of the skating. Metal music thrives in sketchy skating as well as really quick, rapid jump cuts in the edit. Next up is classical music, and classical music is definitely not used a huge amount compared to the last two, but it does have its place. Now, classical music is well known for taking much time to practice and to perfect. Sometimes composers are writing pieces of music for 15, 20 years, these legendary pieces of music. And with that, there's definitely an air of seriousness when it comes to this music. Average edits are gonna seem super underwhelming when you use classical music with them. These old dead guys did not take 20 years to write a piece in order for you to do a 20-foot hillside in your neighborhood. Also, you gotta kind of go beyond the greatest hits when it comes to using classical music. You don't want the song that's being used at the 5th grade piano recital or, the soundtrack to Fantasia. go a little bit further than just to use the same classical pieces of music that everybody knows. Work a little harder than that. Classical music thrives in huge soaring landscapes like the Alps, as well as the beginning or ender songs for longer edits. Next up, we have country music. Now, country music is almost exclusively used in southern United States edits. You'll see them for Arkansas, for North Carolina, for Georgia, any of these edits that are coming out in these areas of the United States. Other times, country music is used kind of slightly ironically, oftentimes in music. And honestly, I'm pretty tired of the whole country sucks take. It's very old and boring now. It's kind of like you trying to be funny saying Nickelback is bad or Imagine Dragons is bad. It's just like the most vanilla music take you could give. You know, you can have an opinion of your own too. It's okay. Now, country music can work pretty well in the downhill scene because it has these outlaw qualities to it. There's a bit of an iconoclastic worldview in the country world that kind of says like it is devoid of hype or trend. Country also works pretty well in the sense that a lot of these mountain roads that we skate are in extremely rural communities where country is kind of born and raised. There's many mountain environments where country is alive and well. Country music thrives in hypeless kind of edits, you know, not very trendy sort of things, as well as groups of skaters filmed together. Next up is LoFi, jazzy hip-hop beats, that kind of thing. Now, LoFi unfortunately suffers from influencer syndrome. And because it's so widely used in the influencer scene, it can come across as very generic and very ingenuine and, you know, made for views kind of stuff. Lo-fi thrives in the Brandon Desjardins. Hip-hop music probably has the most consistent vibe of all the different genres of music throughout most of their songs. This comes from the history of hip-hop where, you know, they're having one pattern repeated over and over again in a song. It comes from DJing in New York in the 70s. But because of this repetition, it makes it really easy to edit to because it's just very consistent vibe throughout the entire thing. The tone stays the same. It's also a genre of music that like oozes confidence. Most rappers, if not all rappers, pretty much all have some air of confidence in their performances typically. Yes, we are going to definitely match the vibe of the beat to the skater, but also the rapper to the skater. There's very much so a feeling of solo performance within hip-hop through rapping, much like the solo performance of the skater in front of the camera. So the rapping performance should definitely match the vibe of the skater as well. Is it smooth, flowing? Is it very juvenile feeling? Is it stuttered? Is it sloppy? Match it with the skater. Hip-hop thrives in the solo edit, consistent tone, as well as very style-centric skaters. Electronic music is a tough one. Now, electronic by nature is the least human sounding style of music. It's computer-generated music. Because of that, it's extremely calculated, never shows any sort of mistake or imperfection in it. Now, in a skating world full of tattered clothes, jagged mountains, deep forests, speed wobbles, the exact rhythms and straight tones within EDM don't always really match very well. Now, probably the hardest part of EDM music is when the song features a drop. And, you know, since the early 2010s, this has been kind of synonymous with a lot of EDM. Now, the drop is cool and all. However, it kind of struggles in the same way as metal, where most skating can't really live up to the hype and energy that is a drop in an EDM song. Now, even if what happens at the drop in the video is incredible, it's, you know, world record breaking skating, it has to continue basically through that whole drop section that is probably 20 to 30 seconds long, and there's almost no way that you have that much good footage to put in there to really make it worth it. EDM thrives in not a whole lot, maybe like night city skating, a lot of lights. It's worth noting, I don't dislike EDM. I actually do like EDM. In fact, I have a bunch of songs in my, you know, skate edit playlist that are just been sitting there forever because I can't find a time to use them in an edit. They just don't really work. Even if I were to film somebody who's very exact and precise, with their drifts, very snappy, you know, in and out drifts, there's always something that doesn't work with it. All right, last one we got is jazz. It's a pretty underused genre within the downhill skating community, but I wanted to put it in here because I want to see some more jazz in the game. Jazz music is very improvisation based. And while I don't necessarily see a lot of improvising done in skating nowadays, a lot of skating definitely seems like it's, you know, somebody trying to max out every single road. You know, tuck to the corner, stand up the corner, tuck to the corner, stand up the corner. It's very predictable. We'd definitely like to see, you know, that's for another video. But improvising is a huge part of jazz music. So if a skater that is getting filmed is very improvisational and, you know, unpredictable, then, you know, it might work pretty well to have some jazz in there. Jazz music is one that actually thrives in the casual edit, which is pretty uncommon. It also does well with unpredictable skaters, and there's definitely some really good atonal jazz that sounds very panicky and is good for survival skating kind of edits. So take a risk. Throw some music on your raw run that you got there. Go for it. Spice it up a bit. Wind noise has pretty much already had its day.